This is the fourth episode of creating your second beginner game. Let's jump straight into it. So we're here at the Unreal Engine Marketplace and we're gonna pick up some content here to use to make our level a little bit prettier. So there is this, let's see, is it the Marketplace collection? They have this City of Brass environment, City of Brass props, City of Brass enemies. We're probably just going to take stuff from here for now, I think. So these will be the two content packs, in addition to I saw something that had a little bit of special effects which we can use to make things a little bit more sparkly and bright and pink. Over here, Infinity Blade effects. So with the Infinity Blade effects and these two content packs, we should be able to make our level look a little bit more interesting. Now this will work the same way as the last game. If you did not see that video, basically I would suggest that you create a separate project for where you import these different assets, and then while you're in that project, actually I'll create a project and show you how to do it from there. Okay, so now we're in a project where we have a separate project, a completely separate project, where we have imported the asset packs of the Infinity Blade effects and the brass environments. Now, what we want to do, we can go to demo. Actually, we should have picked the overview. Anyway, what you do is, and what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna let you do this separately, so this video isn't bloated by the time it takes for me to furnish the actual level, but what you do is you go through the probably the overview map or the example streets. I'm not entirely sure which one is the one that shows off all of the different assets in the packs, and then look at some of the meshes and some of the geometry that you want to have to furnish your level with. And when you have selected a bunch of stuff that you feel like, okay, this is the stuff that I want to do or use, then you can just go to the meshes and let's say you were interested in these items. And all you do is you just right click on them and you go to asset actions and you click migrate, and then that will make sure that it brings along all of the relevant files for it, so like the materials and textures and all of that stuff. So everything gets brought along, and then you choose OK, and then you say which folder or which project you want to put it in. So you put it in the content folder of the project that you want to have it migrated to. And then when you open up that project, you will be able to see them there and you can make use of them. So that's going to be the whole migration process. Now for me, I'm going to pick a bunch of these assets and I'm going to make a list of it, so I'll put it on the video so you can see which ones I used if you want to use exactly the same ones. And yeah, then I'll return after having done some work on the levels. So here we are back again after having made some basic set dressing for the levels. Now the only thing that I've done is I put in some walls and stairs and small trinkets and stuff like that. I haven't actually changed any of the assets that were created yet. We'll do that together to make sure that we follow along and understand everything. But to give you a little idea about what I have been thinking about here is that I made this little courtyard area, and you have this little area here. I'm thinking we can use this asset as our sort of teleporter, and we can have this little special effect to symbolize for the player that it's something that they can walk into. And again, everything that we will be, or I will be using at least, will be in the description of the video. For your sake, of course, you can make the level look however you want. Since this is the first level, what I have done is I put this little part of geometry here, which will be acting as our the movable platform. Now it doesn't make a whole lot of sense that an object like this would move into the wall, but that's just what I chose to do here. You are of course free to use any of the other assets if you want to, if that makes more sense to you. And then we will be moving our spawner up here, and it will be preventing the ball from rolling down, and then it'll roll down the staircase into the character is the plan here generally. So yeah, that's all that we've done. Also, in case you're wondering, there's some Skyline items here in the background just to give the illusion for the player that something more is going on than just this courtyard here, because they can see the spires if they look around, you know. But like most game development things are an illusion that you present to the player because the player doesn't have the full perspective at all times. So you only have to make it look good and feel good from the perspective of the player that they have available to them. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's start changing around some of our actual blueprints that we've made so they look a little bit prettier. So I was thinking the first thing that we want to do is the triggers. So our triggers here, I figured there is if you go to the viewport, let's close down some of the other blueprints so we have some easier time navigating between the things we actually want to do something with. So we have our trigger mesh here now, which we just scaled down, so it would be an object that we could like feel was sort of like a platform. I found some, I think it was in the props, yeah. So this coffee table, I figured we can probably make use of this so it looks something like a trigger. So let's see if that actually works out. We change out the static mesh over here, and since I have the actual static mesh selected over here, when I'm in the blueprint, I can of course just use the arrow here to replace it. Now it's gonna look super funky because of the scaling that we did earlier, so we can just reset it by clicking the yellow arrow over here, and it will return to normal. However, now it will change how the actual collision box looks, because it is subservient, in my case at least, maybe you didn't put them like I did, to the trigger mesh, which means that we scaled it to be in relation to the mesh that was before, and now that we have reset the scale of this one, it also affects this one. So we can reset this scale here, or I will at least, and I will move it up and adjust it a little bit in size and scale now so that it's more fitting for the table that we're going to be using here. So something like that will probably be fine. And then the actual trigger mesh, I'm thinking maybe we put down a bit like so. I'm thinking because we don't want to use this as an actual table, we put it a little bit down through the ground, so it's just gonna be popping up a little bit. So if we were to place one of these objects into the world, let's see if I can find it, it would be something like this by default. You see, it's barely showing, and now it looks sort of like a pressure plate from this particular instance at least. Maybe not so much from over here, but I can live with this. So what I've done is also I have this glass here that we used before. We're gonna keep that. We're just gonna be moving these up so they are above the glass floor, because the buttons are only available to the player that is up here, and as such he needs to be able to actually reach them. So if we go like this and press End key, it should be taking a position on the glass which is in relation to how we made the blueprint, so that's how much it sticks up again. And we'll do the same thing with this one over here. We'll just drag it up a little bit, press End key, and now it should have a similar position as the old one. Let's place it somewhere. That's probably fine. Okay, so the next part is we're gonna be changing the movable platform here. Now we are going to be having different movable platforms later in the levels, I figured, and you'll see when we get to those levels. But for now that means that I want to have the mesh for this object actually be slightly different between the different instances of this particular object. So we could do something like create children and have the different children have different meshes. That actually is probably better because there is one other thing we want to tweak as well. So let's go find our movable mesh, we'll browse and we'll create a child first here that we will call BP movable, and then I don't know what the name of this object over here is, so let's just call it cover. I'm referring to this bit, of course, over here. Anyway, so we want to go in here and we want to change the platform mesh for this one, and we want it to have the mesh that is over here. So we can go and find this mesh by clicking the magnifying glass. So we get it over here, it's selected, we go into the movable cover and we change the mesh over here. Now immediately what happens is of course that it's going to be scaled wrong, and this is a consistent problem with the meshes that I tend to do, because I tend to scale them down, right? But if we go back to the movable platform now, since it doesn't serve a purpose as before, we'll just put its scale back like so. Now it's reset, and that means that the movable object over here has also had its dimensions reset. The issue here though is that it has a different position than we want. This mesh by default is placed a bit up because it's supposed to be a bit above people, but we probably want to have it a bit lower down, so something like that maybe. And I think that will be good enough. So if we go and replace this one, first we'll find it. I wonder if there's a browse the asset. So now we found the movable platform, and now we just click on the movable cover and we right click on the actor over here and choose to replace selected actor with movable cover, and it's picking again from my selection over here. So now we have that cover done over there. So what we can do is we can now change its direction here. I think that's good. Something like that. Something like that. Let's just move it out of the way so we can remove this one. So this should be our movable cover now, and we might even want to try this out to see what it looks like, I think. Okay, first problem here is that we're spawning below the glass. So let's change our spawner, or our player start, to be above the glass. And maybe somewhere over here. Something like that. Now I don't remember which one of these, it doesn't really matter though, I guess. Or actually it might matter. Yeah, it might matter. Okay, so we want to press the other one. Okay, that didn't work flawlessly. We're having a little bit of an issue with the mesh now is interfering with our collision. So we want to make a change for that. So we'll go to our mesh, and we can do that either by going to our movable cover, and then actually not that one, this one, and find the mesh over here, and then we can disable the collision for this actual mesh, or we can choose to remove collision from this actual platform mesh over here, saying that none of these should have blocking. However, that will pose a problem later on, because I will have other things that will actually want to have blocking, and also we want to have this actually the trigger. This is the one we're talking about right now. My bad. I was thinking about this one while talking about this one. This one actually we don't need to have a collision for, so this one we can actually change, because we're only after the actual I'm reconsidering again, because we sort of want to have it feel like a platform. Then we sort of want to be able to walk on it. We don't want to actually like pass through it. So I think it's probably better if we just adjust it a little bit downwards in position, and it will probably be better. That looks funky, but that's just reflection from the glass. So if we walk, actually I'm still having some. Am I having collisions with this pillar over here? I think the pillar is the problem. Okay. So I have an environmental problem. So this particular pillar seems to be having a collision box that's really big. Let's see if we can find it. And we show collisions over here, simple collision. So this is what the collision looks like. And I'm walking around somewhere interfering with this one, I guess. So what we'll do is just remove the collision, and we'll save it, and we'll try again. Now we can walk closer to it. Of course, now it doesn't look that good that we can pass through it, so having more problems with the collision right now. So what we can do to alleviate that a little bit is we can make a collision that we adjust a little bit ourselves. So it's really simple. We can use something like capsule, probably resembles the form and shape of this the best, and now it needs to be this big to cover the crown up here, but we're just interested in this part right now, or I am at least, since I have this in my level. You might not have it in your level, so you might not be interested in that way, but about collisions, this is good to know. So we have this collision box generated now, and we can just enter scaling for this as well, just like most other things, and we can actually just scale this down to a size that we feel is more representative about the geometry. So like maybe something like that. Let's try that out and see how that feels. So now we're getting the collision over here, and that feels acceptable to me, even though it might not be perfect. So we press over here now, and we can see that the banister or the cover is actually moving. Now, is this the direction that we want? Maybe, maybe not. It depends a little bit. For my purposes, I think it's like okay, because if we were to place our spawner now above the cover, then it would probably be decent with it moving out of the way, and the ball would fall down and it would roll down, something like that. I do, however, believe we will get a problem with the height of the glass ceiling. I think it will actually spawn inside of the ceiling. It did not. But it did fall off, which is an interesting thing. That also means that we can't just push this button and then run over to this button, because it's not going to make any difference, because it has already rolled over and it can't actually hit the player. So now the puzzle sort of becomes to hit these in a sequence where they can actually get past without having the other one interfere. And now by testing we also saw that this player was not in the right location to actually be possessed. So if we move it to something like that, move it away, we get the ball, it gets out, it rolls down, it hits the player, yay. Okay, so that part is working functionally. Now let's start looking at our teleporter. So our teleporter is probably hidden somewhere. Let's see if we can find it. Okay, so it's where we placed it before, so it has actually ended up under my staircase right now. So let's move out the teleporter. And we want to find where the teleporter is. And we want to go to its viewport. And we want to find this mesh. So we find where that is. So we have the CityStar marked, and we go to our teleporter and we replace the mesh with the star. And we also reset the scale because that one is off, like we know. Now the proximity volume is going to be erroneous because it's way too small. So we scale that one up to match approximately what we expect the teleporter area to be. It doesn't have to be as big as the whole whole mesh because we're gonna have a little bit of a particle effect here in the middle. But something like this might be okay. Like so. So let's put in the particle effects. So we go to our event graph, and now we want to have this particle effect start playing when we begin play, when the actor is actually created. We can remove these events, we're not interested in them. And a particle effect is fairly easy. So you just type spawn particle, spawn emitter at the location. And for us, in this case, we just want to place it where this actor is, so it will be in the middle of where the scene root is. So if we just get actor location, it's going to be targeting itself as a reference, and now we need to put in an emitter template, and the one that I chose for this was the one that's called gate green locked, because it had a continuous look, which you can see down there, that it will have persistently looping. So it looks like it's active all the time while we're going around. So let's see what that looks like. So we're getting our ball, we get the character, and then we walk into the teleporter and we get teleported. That's good. That's as expected. So now all we need to do is just move this teleporter to where this one over here is, and get rid of these placeholders that I had. And actually move this one in here. And since I think it was in this direction, I will move it 90 degrees so it will be facing the player if it comes from this direction. We might want to move this down a little bit so it's flush to the ground. We can just press End key and that should do that trick. Like so. Okay, the level is starting to come along now. There was one thing here that bothered me a little bit. I saw that we had a little bit of a collision problem over here. So what we can do is we can go to lit over here and we can check for player collision, which will show you all the different things in the world that has a collision that will affect the player. And you can see that this particular area here is a little bit raised, and this is what the player was getting stuck on in my case. So I'm going to be fixing that by, let's see, should we be raising this floor or lowering the other floor? Let's check out that, see how that looks. If we do this, okay, we lose a little bit like that. That looks okay. So something like that. So it's a very handy way to make sure that if you're having weird collision, check the player collision option there, and you can see what is actually going on in case you're getting weird collisions, like weird traces that are hitting things that you don't expect them to hit and things of that nature. Right, also that means that we moved this one a little bit, so let's do that. Okay. I think that's gonna do it for this level. Just play through it a little bit quickly and see what it feels like and looks like right now. Okay. One of the things is the ball. The ball of doom. I'm not too happy with it. It feels out of place. So let's go to our blueprints and find our ball of doom. And let's make the ball of doom gold, because balls that are gold are 50% more balls than other balls. And perhaps we want to reduce this a little bit in size as well. Maybe 0.7 across the board would be good. Let's see if that still works and it still hits the player. Because now that we changed the geometry of it, it might take a different route. It still works for me. So now we can move in here and we can teleport. Although I saw a graphical glitch there, but we'll fix that later on. But in general, everything in level 1 is actually working now. So let's start moving to level 2 and see what we can do here. I have my maps over here. So level 2. So this is what I made the level 2 to look like. Again, it has the backdrops making the world look bigger than it actually is, but this is just a courtyard again that I have segmented up with these walls, which allows you to sort of see a little bit beyond them if you look above, but it doesn't let you pass through them because they're too high to jump. Also, in addition to that, we have these doors. These will be our movable platforms in this area, so they will be moving out of the way when you have hit the objects you're supposed to hit. And for this, I reckon that we have this first area here where we have a line of sight object, and this is supposed to be our this is our trigger again that we're going to be shooting. So we're going to be line of sighting it from here and shooting it over, so we need to move it a little bit so the player can actually see it. So somewhere up here maybe. This is just a particle effect I figured that we might be using for this particular effect to make sure that the player sees these. And also if we add this effect to the triggers, that means they will actually be showing in the previous level that we were in as well, making them more visible as something you can interact with. These gray boxes here are, if you remember, the boxes that change our ammo. So this box over here is actually sort of redundant. But that's just my case. You might want to change this however you want. But this is the box that has the straight shooting bullets. This box is the one that changes your ammo to the bouncing bullets. And the point here is supposed to be that I was figuring we could put a trigger over here on the roof, which means that you can sort of see it from over here, especially with the special effect. But hopefully you can't actually shoot it directly from over here, and that's why you need the bouncy bullets to shoot over here and actually bounce against the wall or something like that to hit it. And then that will open this door, which will allow us to get in here, and over here we have the ammunition that allows you to possess, and the possession ammo is supposed to allow you a little bit of a glance to the character over here that we can actually see, but hopefully not shoot because these objects are in the way, sort of making it difficult. But it still has the bouncing property just like the other ammo type that we had over here. So you have to bounce it against the wall here and hit the player to be able to possess it. And then once you're over here, you can run over here and get into the teleporter. Because even though there is a door over here, this door is not actually openable by anything. So that's the general plan for this level that I had. So let's start with... I think I saw this one was a little bit out of whack. Let's move it down. And then let's add this particle effect over here to the trigger. So the particle effect over here that I chose is called Aura Circle. So let's get our trigger. And we go to its event graph. And its begin play. And we do just the same thing that we did before. We spawn an emitter at location, and we get our own actor location to use as a reference for where this particle effect is supposed to play. And the emitter was called Aura something, I remember. Like so. Let's see how that looks. Alright, we don't see it like so. Okay, let's remove the actual particle effect like this, and then we'll play from here. So now you see we have an issue here. You can see that it's actually playing in an orientation that's different from the wall, because we want it to sort of emit from the actual table or trigger that we've made. So we need to change this a little bit around. So let us reason a little bit so we can deduce what kind of rotation it wants to have. In our world, we want it to be in the orientation upwards here for the object. And that is what it would have normally if we put it in. But this object can be rotated in the world somehow, and since it's a world rotation that we want to take into account, then what we do is we get the world rotation for example, our default scene route, which is the route over here. It doesn't actually matter that much in this case because our mesh is also facing upwards, so that would also work. But if we do something like this, and go back to our level, and we can actually, where is it? There it is. Move our player level so we can get a clearer sight immediately. Something like that. Want to move this down as well a little bit. So we don't actually have to move or look over the wall all the time. But yeah, now we see that it's actually playing in the correct orientation. But for me, I'm feeling that this is a little bit of an overwhelming effect currently. It's a little bit too large. So let's tone it down a little bit by scaling it. So we have our scale over here. And we can either set this manually, or we can make a variable for it that so we can tweak it more easily. It's completely up to you. I felt like maybe it was a little bit like 3 times too big or something like that, so maybe a third of the size will look better. Just eyeballing it, of course, but that feels more in line with the object that's actually related to. Let's see if it actually works also. If we shoot it, you can see the walls moving, but not the actual door because we haven't changed the door yet. So let's start doing that. So what we have here is our platform. That's a movable platform, and let's find its location. So we made the movable cover, and now we need to make another object for this movable door. So we'll just make a child and call it BP movable. And the reason I'm calling them on movable is both because we want to have them descriptive to show that it's actually movable, but we also want to relate to our parent objects to make it easy to know that these are actually like of the same hierarchy, belonging to each other. Like so, movable door. Then we go and find where this asset is. I should have opened up the blueprint first. We open up the movable door, and then we go find this asset, which is called the trapdoor slamming. And then we replace the mesh, like so. So now it's gonna be standing from the bottom up, apparently. So if we were to pick the blueprint now for the movable door, click this one, we can actually replace this one immediately with our movable door, and nothing seemed to have happened, but this is now actually a movable door. We can also remove the movable platform that we have behind here. It has a reference, of course, yes. So let's see here. This trigger is related to this movable door, or this platform before here, so let's change this before we actually delete it. It doesn't actually matter, we could just delete the movable platform here and break the reference, and this would just be pointing to nothing over here. Let's just show you so you're aware. It looks a bit scary, but it's fine, in this instance at least. So now it becomes none here, so now we want to find our movable door. This is the trapdoor slamming one. So let's see what this looks like. So if we were to shoot it like so, I'm missing a lot it seems, then it would move away like that. So it doesn't give us a whole lot of time to get through, but we get some time to get through. And it should be enough. I mean, the player can just shoot again if it wants to, right? It's not a big deal like so. And then once it's over here, we're supposed to pick up this ammo, and now we have the ammo. Actually, we were supposed to have the straight shooting ammo over there. Let's change that. Our character, when it spawns in, has... where's our character? First person character. So what we did is we made it the projectile type it has equipped. And by default it has the parent class, but we want to make sure it has the no bounds to begin with, because, or at least in my puzzle, you might want something different, of course, but so that when it's in here, the bullets that it shoots is the bullets that you have to have line of sight with. You can't actually bounce them, meaning that if you shoot this to get through here, and then you get to this room, then you get here, and then you can see the trigger over there, although you can't see it of course because we don't have it there, but the plan is that it's going to be over there, and then you can like hopefully shoot it, and then you can go like, it doesn't seem to be able to hit it, and then you pick up this ammo and then you bounce it instead. So that's the idea. So let's put in another trigger. Let's so, and we have our BB trigger over there, and now the point is to see it yet not be able to shoot it. So maybe we have it on the back side. Wonder if it will be visible enough there. Let's give it a try. So this is where the particle effects also play a role, but this seems difficult for the player to see, so that's probably not a good idea unless you are choosing something more obvious when it comes to the particle effect, so it can be seen there as well. But we'll put it over here and see if that's better. Now you can sort of see it over there. The problem here though, I think, is we can probably hit it from here. So what we need to do is, since we just pulled this in, we don't actually have it connected to something, but we want to replace this door with a movable door. Did I do it the other way around? I did do it the other way around. It's like so. And now we have another movable door here, and we say we want to connect this one. And now we have the issue of we have multiple items in the level here which could be relevant for us to choose to affect. Now, we know that it's the door slamming 2 one because we just did the door slamming without a number before. But if you want to figure out which one it is in the world, what you need to do is you need to actually click it here and see which name it has been given in the world outliner. So then you know that it's the trapdoor slamming 2 that we're after in this case, and then you choose that one over here. So let's try this again. Let's see if I can shoot it from here. Seem to be having a lot of trouble doing it, at least. Let's see if we can do it better with this ammo. Not having much luck. Not entirely sure if I'm missing or not. Let's test and see if it's actually my bad aim or not. And this is also a good practice to always test your levels, test your functionality, and do it often, so that if you encounter a bug in your game, then you can at least find it early enough so you can do something about it. And let's see if I can shoot it. Okay, so it's opening like that. So that's okay, I guess. And then here as well, I'm pretty consistent with making my levels a little bit problematic to navigate. That's not the one we wanted. We wanted this one, but we're going to move both of them. Now, one of the things you might have noticed, or maybe not, with this particular level that I at least chose as the set dressing, and I'm hoping that you picked as well, is that it has a pretty nice material, making it really easy to blend in. It breaks it up so it doesn't look uniform all the time, and it also allows you to like merge the different assets easily between each other, because it's using a pretty cool material that's using some world positions and stuff like that to alter how the different blotches and imperfections on the material, on the actual meshes. And that's very thankful to have as a developer, because it makes it easier to have the geometry not look monotone or repetitive all the time. Now this one over here is our teleporter, so we're just gonna be replacing that one. Like so, and that should be done there. Then we have our character over there. Let's try that out and see if the actual possession is working. So I accidentally got a hit there, which is good. So that seems to be working fine as well. Was there something else that was happening here though? It felt like I was... Okay, that's not what I was intending to do. What even happened there? Okay, did I put a teleporter here? Oh, that's the old teleporter. Okay. So, let's find our teleporters. We should probably be having 2 here then. Teleporter. No, it seems like I didn't replace this object, I replaced something else. Oh well, let's just drag our teleporter over here then. So like so, remove the star. Like so, and it should be good. Now let's see if I can recreate what was happening before, because it felt a little bit odd when I was moving backwards. There is... Ah, of course. What we have is, or I'm assuming it might be, it might have been that I sort of get possession of myself with the balls. That might have been what was jerking me around, I'm not entirely sure. Let's see if it's... Anyway, to make that not happen, we could, if that is the case, which I'm not entirely sure that it is, we could go to our projectile that is possessing, hopefully in here, possessing, and we're casting to a character. Now we happen to know that the character that we're possessing is going to be a character, but this could hit our own character as well, and it would also be acceptable. So we might want to have something more specific here, which would be a third-person character. Or we could, if we don't want to cast, which we could also do, is make a specific interface for the character that we're supposed to be taking control over. Let's actually do that, I think. So let's go to our character over here. Let's first make the blueprint. We can make it up here in the level 2. Let's think about this. Yeah, it will probably be fine. So we'll make an interface. The bluprint interfaces, and we'll just call this BPI possessable. And like before, this particular interface, we don't actually need to make use out of it. We can name this function something like possession, in case we want to have functionality for it later. But what we need to do is actually just have this particular character implement that interface, and that will be enough for us to make use of it. So we'll go to the class settings and we'll get the BPI possessable, like so, and then we go back to our projectile, and instead of checking for cast a character, we'll just say implements interface. Remove that, and we want the BPI possessable. So that sort of makes sense. We're only supposed to be trying to possess something that has the interface possessable. Right, we need a branch here as well. Like so. So if it's true, we possess it. So let's see if that fixes the issue that I was experiencing, or if that's something else. Don't seem to be having the same jerky reaction, at least. Let's shoot some bolts over the wall here. Hopefully something will hit the character. Not sure if I'm hitting or missing. And to make sure that we haven't broken anything now as well, we might as well just do this and bring the player start over here and bring a copy of this ammo just so we can change the ammo type over here. Take that one and we'll shoot him over here. So now you see that we have broken something. Now we can't actually possess him anymore. So let's troubleshoot and see what's happening. person character implements possessable. So let's see if we type in here and we say when something gets hit. Well, we're not reaching here since we're not possessing most likely, but let's just make sure that it's not something else that's going wrong. So we should be typing hello when we pass this. So we are typing hello, so we're just not actually possessing the character. That is a bit interesting. Let's see if we can figure this out. Alright, we might want to actually put in our pawn here. How about that? So, okay. So the other actor here is an actor, which is a parent to pawn, which means we can't actually drag it in here. So we need to actually cast this to at least pawn if we want to be able to plug it in. Like so. This should hopefully be everything. Let's see if we can clean this up in a good... That's not the one I wanted to do. Actually, that is what I wanted to do. I was just lying. Or I was checking if you were awake. That's what I did. Also now you see that it's very good to test small chunks of your game over and over again to it makes it faster if you run into a problem and not having to like debug a whole bunch of stuff when there's like something not working and you're not entirely sure what. So now we know that that works, so let's see if we can hit him from over here again. It should not be a problem with my expertise accuracy. And saying that, I just managed to screw up my mouse somehow. Let's see if we can do this again. Okay, we're shooting balls, golden balls, balls of awesome possessiveness. No? Nothing? Might be an issue with... I'm thinking possibly the ball might despawn before it hits, or I'm missing. Let's see if it is. If we move it up like so, the wall, just so we have a clear vision. Okay, the terrain is a little bit problematic to hit with here, it seems. We need to sort of have the ball... So this part will be a bit of a balancing act, of course, to make sure that it's actually feasible for the player to hit the object that you want it to hit. So it might be... You might want to do this as easy or as hard as you want to, of course, because it's completely up to you to set the difficulty of your own game. But something to keep in mind that something that's too difficult is often frustrating for the player. Something that's too easy is often not challenging enough so that it's actually fun. But the problem that I'm currently with this particular level design that I chose, at least, is that we want to have the character barely visible, so we know where it is, but we don't want to have it too easily visible, so you don't have to actually do the bouncing part, right? Still can't see it from here. Let's see if we can move it up a little bit further. Anyway, I'll probably like leave the part of balancing there for now. It's something that might not be that relevant to you, depending on how you build your level, of course. Anyway, let's keep moving on. So what we have now is we have the ammo types. The ammo types should probably be a little bit more interesting in some way. We could be doing something like, if we go to the projectile and we go to its that the actual... Okay. So what we want to do here is something along the lines of giving it a way to display what kind of ammo type it is. So we can do that with some text. I wonder if the billboard is actually able to text as well. Let's check it out quickly. It seems to be only a picture. Let's pick the text renderer then. And we'll have this be the ammo name text, like so. And I wonder if this one has a billboard built into it. It does not. So what we need to do is we need to set the text for this, and we'll just set it to ammo as default so we see where it is. We'll plug it up a little bit. We'll make it align in center so it looks like, well, like that. And then we can also go to our event graph and say that here we had our data before that we picked out, and we actually created with a project name, a projectile name, and we can actually use that one now to set our ammo text. Like so. As long as you add a descriptive name, you can of course name it whatever you want, then this will be displaying in the game now in some form or fashion. So this one says processable projectile or process projectile, and you might want to change these so they're actually visible for your player as well. So having it show in the direction where they would probably read it. Yes, and then we might actually want to spiff them up a little bit as well, making them look like something more interesting. And these don't actually need to be represented by a geometric object. We can actually have them be just a particle effect if we wanted to. So if we go to effects here, I figured that this one might be okay. So if we go into the projectile, no, not the projectile, the ammo pickup, and then the begin play for this one, we also spawn a particle effect at its location. And then we choose the one called chest, or I will at least. Something like that. Let's see how that looks. So now we have a sparkly effect there, which is sort of indicative and alluring for the player to walk into, right? So now we can just get rid of the visual representation we actually have. Although in this case we actually made this mesh as our overlap event. So we don't want to remove this one because we have our event tied to it. So all we need to do is really just hide it in game. Like so. And this is what it will look like. So possessable projectile, and you walk in here and you get it. And now we have the projectile that can possess. If you were able to shoot and hit. Okay, so it is a little bit clear to have it like this in the game, but you maybe don't want to have it show the box all the time. You can just unclick the visible part if you want to, and that will be not shown in the game. Although then you might not be able to see as easily where your ammo types are. I don't know, it depends on if you have a scene root node of course and stuff like that, but yeah, so this is what it will look like now. So for me, I will keep the box just to make it clear where they are for visibility. It doesn't show for the player anyway. And I think we are sort of reaching the point where this is okay. We might want to angle this one so it doesn't look as odd with the legs sticking out. Maybe something like that. And since we made the particle effect actually appear in relation to its actual rotation, then this means that it will show off properly in this direction if we were to move it like so, as you can see. Okay, I think we have all the parts for this level done as well now. I do believe. So let's move on to our last level. Or at least for me, last level. Again, creative freedom here. If you want to have more levels than me, or fewer levels, or more expansive levels, it's completely up to you. It's about making the game fun for you primarily, but also those that you maybe want to play, have it play with you or for you or something like that as well. So if you just want it as a learning experience, of course, you can sort of follow along with what I'm doing. So for the final level, the plan was to have these platforms that disappear with regular intervals, and I figured that these covers or banisters would fill in for them as well now. So what I've done is just a simple level where you can the point here is that you're supposed to see this glow over there and see that there's some point of going there, and it's the same glow that we used for the ammo. And that is where the game over part is now. So you're supposed to be jumping over this obstacle course here, and I made this one not too difficult. It will be more difficult when they disappear, of course, which again might not make a whole lot of sense that they disappear, but if you feel that there's a different mechanic here that makes more sense, then by all means feel free to change it around a bit. Let's just move our player start. Where did it go? Is that my player start? Am I supposed to start inside of that pillar? I don't like that. Come out. And then we put it somewhere where I'm actually able to finish the course, so I can show you what it's supposed to look like. Because I am currently having lockups with my mouse and it's preventing me from performing well. I promise you I'm not terrible at video games. Okay, did we have multiple player starts? No, that's just... So we have a character here. We remove the character. We move the actual player start. Something like that, but not in the wall. Like so. Okay. So we... Okay, the mouse is looking up again. So we jump over here. We get our game over and our time. So that's the point. So again, this is just placeholder. So this is our game over objects, or not this particular one, but the one we're going to be using is over here. So if we find it, our BP game over. And for this one, just like before, we create a particle effect at location, actor location, like so, and get our chest, like so. And when it comes to the visuals, we just have our static mesh right now, and the static mesh is again what we have as our vent, so we can just hide this one as well for the player in-game, but we want to keep it, or at least I want to keep it shown like this so I see where it actually is. And then we take the placeholder that I have and remove that, and then we see what this looks like. So that's our game over there, like so. Now we have all the pieces of the puzzle. So no, we have one thing left. We have the platforms that need to be changed. So the platforms here that are facing needs to be having these static meshes on them, of course. So let's open that up. Let's close some of these blueprints and things and tabs so we get some more space. So this one is the one we want to change. We want to change it with this particular asset. We browse to it, we go here, and we replace the platform like so. And I want to move this downwards because I want it to be closer to the scene root. Like so. and then we take this one and replace it with, no. First we navigate to the blueprints and then we go and replace these and see what that looks like. So I placed it quite far down. That makes sense, of course, because let's undo that, because I actually placed this in manually. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm actually going to go back to this translation that I made here and reset that so it has its normal one. That means when I actually go here and replace this one with the blueprint, it should hopefully have the exact same position. And it does. So now it's been replaced. So we replace this one. And I figured that the two first ones are supposed to be facing, then this one is supposed to be sort of like a place where you can breathe for a moment, and then these ones are going to be facing platforms. And then you have some breathing room again, and then you have one last one which is a facing platform. Oh, also, if you didn't see there, it says bad size in here. That's because there's not enough room inside of the capsule here. It's expecting you to not be able to spawn. So if you just make sure that you have enough room, like placing it a little bit above ground in some cases, will do the trick for you to have that problem alleviated. Then I want to remove these banisters or covers or whatever we want to call them, and let's try this out a little bit. Of course, that will be what happens. So yeah. Now we had configured these so you actually have a variable on them, so you can change how much or how long between the different phasings is. So it's exposed as 1 for, actually all of them are 1 now. So let's make this one maybe 2 seconds and this one 3 seconds. That would probably make it so that you can jump on the first one, and then just by the time you jump it will go down, and then you'll be like, oh, what is going on over here? And then you have to figure out how to move across here in a fashion. So you can balance these however you want, of course. Now I think we are done with all the actual elements of the gameplay. So now it should actually be fully playable from start to finish and look fairly okay, I think. Hopefully you found this whole set dressing fun as well, because that is something a lot of people take pleasure out of, like creating their own worlds. And it's something that gets better with time, like most things. So if you feel like you didn't have a very cool level, you can always take inspiration from the demo examples that they have and just practice making levels. You can do a lot from a very few assets if you just spend some time practicing and owning that skill. And it's quite useful for you as well, because it will allow you to make more interesting and varied levels and make people go a little bit like wow when they see it. What we're gonna do now is we're going to change our actual characters a little bit. So if you go to the Epic Store, the marketplace, and you browse to the permanently free collection, this is what you'll be getting, and I figured we might use this stylized character kit here. It's something that might be plausible for the specific style that we have currently used already in our levels. So we're gonna be using this, and I'm gonna show you how to apply this. So just download it and apply it to your project, and I'll see you back in there. Now that we have the new stuff in the project, what we're gonna do first is you're gonna find the mannequin folder and going to character and into mesh, and just to be able to explain something clearer to you, we're gonna be renaming the SK mannequin, which is a skeletal mesh for our character. We're gonna rename it to _original, and this is gonna be clear in a little bit. And we're gonna do the same for the UE4 mannequin skeleton here. So rename, add an _original in that. Okay. So what we have done now is we've renamed these to be able to distinguish them from the pack that we just imported, because the pack that we just imported, if we go in here to this folder and we go into models and pre-made characters, let's open up one of these. What you will find is, if you go over to skeleton over here, is that you see, or at least you hopefully can see on my screen there, it has a skeleton that is named the same as ours. It is using the same skeleton. It has the same skeletal structure as ours, more or less. And because of this, what we're going to be doing is we are going to be transferring these skeletal meshes that were created, these meshes, to our skeleton to make sure that we can use our animations just like they are. And this process is fairly easy when you have a skeleton that is the same like this. You can just reassign these skeletal meshes. So we'll mark all of these pre-made ones. Right click, go to the skeleton, and then we'll say assign skeleton. So if you drag out this column here, you can see that we have a bunch of skeletons available for us to pick here. The one that we're after is the one that we renamed before, which is called the original. And then you'll see what it will do to try and retarget this skeleton. Now, exactly all of these things don't exist here, but these are added bones that will not cause a problem, because all the bones that we have are actually available on both skeletons. So we can just click accept and it will say these are the bones that you want to transfer. Then it will ask you this one for each of these different skeletal meshes. So we'll just pick the same skeleton 4 times. We can mark all of these, click save. And we also want to make sure to save our actual skeleton. We can do that by saving all. And now if we go back to our first level, for example, like so, where we have our third-person character, we can go into this blueprint and we can actually change the mesh on this one to be one of the meshes that we just converted. And they have names like these ones. The mesh PC00, mesh PC01, mesh PC02 and mesh PC03. So we can just pick any of these and the animations will continue to play unrestricted because they are using the same skeleton as our current animation blueprint. So this is fairly important to keep in mind. It can be confusing when you're starting out, but each skeletal mesh has a, like we saw earlier, if we go to this now, if we go to the mesh, open this up now, we can see that it has a different skeleton now, and you see that all of these things are combined. So a skeleton, a mesh belongs to a skeleton, and a skeleton also has an animation blueprint, which is this one here actually. This one is just our animation view. And these are the animations that are available to play because these animations are also tied to the skeleton. So a skeleton is sort of like the glue that holds everything together. You need to have you need to have the skeleton set up properly for the other parts to work. You can't just change out the mesh. If we would have changed out these meshes just like directly in our third person, where did it go there? In this third person character blueprint, then we would have basically said we want to use this mesh, but our animation blueprint that we had selected would be connected to a different skeleton. And since those were not the same thing, it would have ended up in a T-pose or just been standing still, because it couldn't actually play the animations because it doesn't belong to the same skeleton. I hope that was clear. We'll probably be delving a little bit more into this in future episodes when we get more advanced animations, but hopefully you were able to follow this transition and such here. What we're going to be doing now is, now that we actually have several different distinguished skeletal meshes, we're going to go back to our, not entirely sure where we put those, maybe in the blueprints over here. So here we made our different classes before that we wanted to have from the start screen. So what we now can do is we can actually go in and see, if you see here that the third person character has the one with the white t-shirt, so we can go into the mage and change its mesh to how about the naked guy, or at least almost naked guy. And then we can go into our warrior and we can do the same thing for that one and change it, so we know that they're looking distinctly different. So the warrior will be looking like this. And let's save everything. And so that way we have now established that if we're getting the third person character, we will have the white t-shirt. If we have one of the sub-children, we will have no t-shirt or a black t-shirt. So by going to our map and checking main menu and playing this, and then picking one of these, you can see that we actually spawn in with the proper character now. So it actually transferred the information and allowed us to spawn in with a different class. And then, of course, these are just visual now, but this means that you could, in these different blueprints that we have for the classes, have different skills, different attributes, all kinds of differences, just to like separate them. This is just to show you that this is how you can make use of loading in different classes into the game, and then what you do of that is completely up to you. Now I think we are ready to make a playtest from start to finish and see how this actually works out, if it's working or not. I will just be taking a few moments off camera to balance the levels a little bit, make sure that everything is perfectly fine, and then we'll play through this and see what happens. So back again. So I've done some balancing and I've done some adjustments and checked the level and making sure that everything looks okay. And I noticed a bit of a bug. If you start a level here, you can see that the particle effect is misaligned for the teleporter, so we're gonna fix that a little bit quickly. So what we want to do is we want to get the world rotation. And again we can take the scene route, and that should be fine. Now it should be adjusting to whatever rotation it currently has, so if it's 90 degrees now, we should be able to go down here and rotate it 90 degrees, play again, it should be looking better. In addition to that, we also have our main menu level. Now this level currently looks like a character just walking around in this place, and we want to make it look a little bit more like a actual level, a menu I mean. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going here and creating a game mode. So what we can do is we can go to world settings and we can create a game mode from here. We put it in the main menu, we call this BP underscore main menu. Now we don't want a whole lot of things for this. All we need to do is we need to make sure that the default pawn is chosen here, and that's pretty much it, I think. Nothing else is really that important, because what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be wanting to have a completely blank slate of a level here. So actually default pawn is not the one we want. I think it might be spectator pawn, yes, like so. Which means we're getting, okay, we need to remove this one also because it might actually be default pawn then. Let's check again. We had a character in the world which was being auto-possessed, so that was messing that up a little bit. Let's try the default pawn and see what it looks like. It should be an inanimate, yeah, so it's basically just an ability to look around, sort of like a spectator's pawn, except the spectator pawn can move around also like an inanimate object or like a ghost or something like that. So now we just have the menu here, but we want to clean up the rest of the level to make sure we have like a black background, so we don't have anything really interfering with the rest of the menu. So we can just go and reduce everything like so, and press delete. That didn't quite work. Let's just get rid of everything manually then. So now we have nothing that's shown in the level at all, so we can just save it like so, and that gives it a more clean look, and it actually looks like a main menu. You could spruce it up and have something fancy in the background, but we just want to have it look like a menu to be able to jump in and play from, right? So let's play through this once and see what it looks like then. Should have changed the text over there to be looking at the player. Forgot about that. This one as well. And we shoot some bolts over there. Nothing is hitting. Let's try again. There we go. There we go. And that is the whole game. So if you have managed to follow along this far, well done. This is the point where we consider ourselves pretty much done. There might be small amounts of polish, like you noticed we had or at least I had the texts in the wrong way when it came to the ammo pickups. But this is the point where you have also reached when you can go completely nuts and change everything up as much as you want. You can make your levels as complex as you want. You can add how many levels you want. You can add more mechanics and stuff like that. We have built a okay foundation to build upon when it comes to like objects that can interact with other objects and teleporters to be able to transfer between different levels and having them easily set up in our enumerators and things like that. You can make a whole bunch of new ammo types with different settings for whatever reasons, maybe for different types of puzzles or for some other kind of reason. So there should be a fair amount of flexibility for you. And in addition to that, you can also, if you feel brave enough, build completely new functionality and new systems as well and enhance this even further. Hopefully you found this series helpful and educational. If you liked the video, leave a like. If you did not like it, leave a dislike. Leave any suggestions or comments you might have down below. Subscribe and share these videos if you want to see more like it in the future. That is all for now. Keep on learning.